All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Designing the Best You. We have today a wonderful guest. I am so excited to introduce her, Dr. Lulu. Guys, she is amazing. She is a naturopathic physician, and she is an absolute expert in genetic health. And I love that. Working with patients experiencing chronic disease, hormonal imbalances, endocrine disorders, GI dysfunction, depression, anxiety, fatigue, all the things that you guys experience. So this is perfect. So you guys are going to just be amazed with everything she's got to offer you today. She believes that once you dive in deep to the root of the problem of the distortion and ignite your body, you're able to heal. And we see unimaginable changes in our well-being. Guys, her passion lies in helping other people discover their zest and joy for the life that has been lost along their path of illness. Before starting her naturopathic clinic, she journeyed through many careers. She was a true Renaissance woman, which I can't wait to dive into. She studied interior design at the University of Georgia. She has a doctorate from the prestigious Bastyr University. She's an herbal formulator, international speaker, author, spreading the message of health and educating about prevention and well-being. She has a podcast of her own as well. She has a new book coming out, which I can't wait to hear about as well. And you guys will get access to that. Guys, she facilitates ceremonies to activate plant and mineral medicine, connecting points around the world to elevate planetary consciousness and community. She's also the botanical medicine director at the Veterans Healing Farm, which her and I talked about a little bit on our call prior to this. And she is able to share tons of expertise with the veteran community about using plants to help heal and elevate their lives. Guys, I would just welcome Dr. Lulu. Amazing.
Thank you. Wow. It sounds like I'm busy.
Right? I know it's always interesting when someone reads about you and you're like, I thought I just provided a snippet and wow.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, Vennessa. I'm super excited today to talk to you about all those things that you just mentioned and more.
Yeah. So how did you get into just medicine in general?
Right. That's a great question. And I don't have the common story where a lot of naturopathic physicians be like, well, something happened to me physically, some kind of ailment, and then I kind of like an autoimmune disease, and I went down the road to find out how to heal myself. I didn't really have like that aspect. Mine was more of kind of the journey of learning about different things in my toolbox. So my deep passion has always been food. I moved to New York City to do this huge natural cooking program, and that kind of fell through. And then I moved to California, and I worked as a yoga retreat center, cooking and learning about food. So I did it a different kind of way. I learned how to be a yoga teacher. I was doing all this meditation. Then my journey kind of led me into my massage career, where I learned how to actually be a massage therapist. So I started kind of getting these tools like, okay, I've got the nutrition tool, I have the working with the body. And then I went to herbalism school and aromatherapy. So then I learned those pieces. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, like I want to be able to help the whole person, because I felt like I had all these pieces that were coming together, but I couldn't really like diagnose someone and prescribe something. And so I was like, okay, well, what's that next step? And then, so I found out about naturopathic medicine. I was like, oh my God, this is a perfect fit for me. And so from there, and that was several years ago. But now I use all those tools in my practice in different ways, and I think as many of us as naturopathic physicians, we have like an inspiration, right? Something that really like keys us, that little seed, and then we kind of move on from there. So I've always incorporated food, and I still work with patients on diet nutrition. That's like key, because I believe that foundations of health can do wonders for the body. Just really looking at that, food, nutrition, water, the simplicity, but actually can make such a difference. And including myself when I get busy.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like food. I mean, I talk all the time. It's like food medicine, right? I mean, it's
totally
whatever's
is.
on the end of our fork can either destroy us or can heal us.
Right. I know exactly. And I work a lot with patients with detoxification. And I'm always so surprised when they start eliminating things. I'm like, okay, well, we need to eliminate these things so we can get things moving in the body. And they're like, oh my God, I could never give up those things like cheese or dairy, gluten, eggs, all that stuff. I'm like, well, those are causing havoc in your system right now. So we want to give your body a clean slate. So that's kind of like my point there, is like we have to provide some kind of slate for the healing to begin.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so
Reset it.
yeah.
So just because it works so hard. I mean, I was
Hmm.
actually just on the phone with my naturopathic a couple days ago, and she's like, "So we've done all of like the detox stuff for the most part." She goes, "Guess what the next thing is? A colon cleanse, right?
Dun, da, da,
Because you got to get
da.
things moving. And if your body's
Right.
moving some of that stuff, the toxins sit in there. It doesn't matter what you eat, basically, right at that point. So it's like you have to do things that are going to service your body because you
Hmm.
only get one of them. As far as I know,
Right.
I can't like replace everything on my body.
Right. We can't just like trade it in for a new
No,
one.
I
But
wish.
anyway, maybe in like, I don't know, some sci-fi movie.
Right. Definitely not in our lifetime for sure, right?
Right.
Our
Yeah,
kids.
totally.
So you dove into that. So what then really just said, hey, you know what? I should just start doing this naturopathic medicine and I'm starting to see results and they get people and what are like what was that path? And then what type of patients do you typically work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, when you're in naturopathic medical school, which is a super intense experience, it's just like something I could never, well, I don't want to really recreate it, but that I could never have imagined in my mind how tough it was going to be. Even, all of my background was science and everything and art. But so when I was in school, I started to kind of like just feel the kind of like that path that I wanted to take, just what type of conditions that I could see in the clinic, because we work with patients in the clinic for 2 years. So we get to see all these different things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I really like working with women, with women's health and helping them because I resonate with that as a female practitioner. And then also I really, I think because I experienced such deep chronic fatigue myself, total burnout being in school, and then coming out into the world, and I could see all my patients, almost every single one of my patients has some sort of fatigue. And whether that's coming from an autoimmune disease or something else they have going on, chronic stress. And I was like, okay, this has got to be a huge component of my practice. So I work with patients with adrenal fatigue and thyroid conditions really consistently. That's a really big part of my practice. Um, and then I love working with the gut. Like I mentioned, I love food. And so I'm always thinking, what part of the body is having the reaction? Is it coming from the gut? Is it something that you ate? How can we shift things? Why is the gut so, in this place of disorder, so to speak? And a lot of people, when you ask them what's wrong, the only thing they can explain to you is like, my stomach hurts. So it's really vague, right? And so it's a lot of diagnosis, detective work, which for me, I really love, getting into the root problem or root cause of the problem and discovering what's going on in there. And then I think my other real passion is detoxification. So, and like I mentioned, I love working with patients with detox because then they feel like just in like a week, sometimes people will have this amazing transformation about how they change. So I really like that. Then I kind of started to work and learn about genetics. And that is like my huge passion now. It's a part of my new book that just came out. And how I work with that with patients is I take all those things I just mentioned: hormones, adrenal, thyroid, gut disorders, detoxification. And then I use genetics in a way to help see what's going on in there at a cellular level, right? And I think that's the wave of the future of medicine. It's like we can take that microscope and go really deep in and discover why some of the pathways, especially like detoxification, why aren't your body's not able to detox? Why?
Yeah, I mean,
You
it's
know?
crazy how it all works. It's all
Yeah.
those SNPs and stuff like that. I mean,
Hmm.
and I'll let you explain like what those SNPs and stuff are. But like, for example, like we just did a genetic test with me and what was it, a couple months ago. And I have some methylation issues. Like I have the MTFH, right? As everyone calls it, the mother effer gene in right functional medicine and naturopathic. It's like
Yeah.
I've got that. I've got COMT, so when you have those and you're aware of them, guys, this is the huge thing. When you've been tested for them and you're aware that you have them and they're activated, that's the thing that people don't understand too, is like we have all these genes. They may not be activated, but they typically are activated by your lifestyle, good or bad. And when you start taking care of those pathways in the way that your specific body was designed, then life becomes a heck of a lot easier. And I am one to
Mhm.
preach that one. So tell us a little bit about some of the, maybe a couple of the common, pathways or SNPs and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that people come to you for, and you're able to really work with them and help, I won't say cure, but you know what I mean? Like really
Right.
treats and help them manage the lifestyle through the genetics.
Right. Yeah. So that's such a great subject for us to talk about because, I think it's a place where a lot of people don't have good information, or they're kind of like scared. They're like, there's the thought process like, oh my gosh, if I get my genetic panel run, everyone around the world is going to know about me. Right. Well, so, that's not really true. You can say that's like an ancestral panel, which is different than a wellness DNA panel, which is what I use. I don't do a lot of ancestral work. Some patients will have that done, and I don't usually analyze it with them. But so first of all, let's go through the steps because I think it's good for people to understand that. So first you want to do a DNA test. And what is that? So you're going to do some kind of swab of your saliva and put it in a little tube. It's like the easiest test you could probably ever do. And then you send it off, and you can write on the form, I don't want any of my DNA used for anything, right? It's just for me, only me. Or you can check the box that says, I don't mind if you use my DNA for studies, right? And so that's still anonymous, but they use it in a way for them to see specific genes and how things are working, what kind of different um, treatments can be helpful for specific genetic mutations, et cetera. So you send that in, and then what happens with me, the way I work with it is I get that DNA information back, all the SNPs, which is kind of like a snippet, right? Is that the good way to describe it? I like to, you think about that helix of the DNA. It's kind of like a little piece of that we're seeing, a SNP, which has, we have many, 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 many SNPs in the body.
I think I heard something like it was like a million or something like
It's
that. Like
crazy.
insane.
Yeah.
And they're
So
all different.
yeah, they're all different. And when we get that data, like raw data, it's just like a sheet of numbers. It's like so overwhelming. So in that, I always recommend if you're going to have your raw data run, you're working with someone who knows how to interpret it, because it's not just like you can't, get a piece of paper and it says XYZ. It says XYZ times a billion.
Oh yes, I remember getting the report back. The one that we did was like 200 and some pages, and I'm like, I have an engineering background. I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm going, that's a
Right.
lot of graphs and a lot of numbers and a lot of information. It's like,
Totally. Yes. It's
make
even
sure
for
you're
me.
working with someone.
Yeah. So we have that data. Then what happens is, okay, say, and I told you kind of like the patients that I'm working with. So say someone is coming to see me, and let chronic fatigue is a great one. So they're coming with chronic fatigue, and maybe they have some different things going on. Maybe they have some hormonal issues. Maybe they also have some gut issues. So then what I'll do is I'll make a specific wellness report based on those specific subjects. Like mood, which you mentioned, COMT, that's a big one with mood. So there's specific reports that I'll run based on those symptoms, and then it kind of like analyzes it together, and it says like, okay, these things are important for you to increase in your diet, for instance. These are going to help you. These are going to things that you should avoid, like specific toxins for an autoimmune disease that could exacerbate the autoimmune disease. So there's lots of different things. So I don't run like every report known to man or woman or to me. I pick the reports that are in alignment with the patient. And so that, like, the gut celiac disease is a great one. And just we want to see like what's going on in there. How are those SNPs affecting your body, not only in the way it functions, but also the future function, right? That's what's really great about DNA. It shows us from a preventative standpoint what we can do in this moment in time to help things not shift moving forward. And it's not like a prediction. Just because you have a specific like DNA SNP that says like it's possible you could, the genes showing that you could have lupus. Well, that's just like a possibility, just like a possibility I could take a right turn or a left turn, right? There's like just a possibility. So it shows us that there's some mutation in our genetic makeup, and it gives us an idea like, okay, well, if I'm more prone to this, then I really need to make the changes now. So in the future, I'm really taking a step forward for my health. So that's why I love genetics, is because there's no medicine out there that gives us that knowledge, that allows, and it's really tangible. for patients to see. It's like, I'm not like making it up. This is your cellular makeup.
And it's great because, like you said, I mean, it's not just for the short term. People come to you because of the short term fatigue and stress issues and gut issues and all those things. But when you're taking that genetic makeup that's specific only to you, there's only going to be one you ever on the face of this earth. And you take that and you're like, okay, now and a lot of people, like you said earlier, they're afraid to like look at the reports. They're like, oh my gosh, my family, they're known for like heart disease and things like that. Y'all, there's only, I think it's like 2%, and correct me if I'm wrong, of your DNA, your genes that can't be changed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everything else, you all have the power to do. So look at it as you're getting this information and you're working with a physician on this, like Dr. Lulu, and saying, we have the opportunity to make some really good changes. But as I'm sure you work with patients, it's like you have to be willing to put in some of that work and make some lifestyle choices, whether it's from reducing stress or exercise situations or food or supplements. But I'm telling you all from experience, like it's massively amazing. Does that make sense? Massively amazing, but right. But
No,
it's
I love that. That's perfect.
incredible. It's like this beautiful piece of work, right? When you have knowledge, everyone says knowledge is power. Well, knowledge plus action, I believe, is amazing power, because you can have all of this knowledge sitting up here and you can know that I have these different conditions and gene mutations and things like that. But if you're not going to be willing to do anything with it to make your life better so that you can impact others out there, then you just wasted your time and money.
Right. Totally. Yes. And I loved what you said too about, let's talk about epigenetics, because I think you kind of mentioned it, but you just didn't say like the word necessarily. So epigenetics is like everything around us. You could think like epi is like, the epicenter, what's on top of us. And it's what everything in our environment that then affects our DNA. So that's really important because like what you said, Vanessa, like what we eat, how we exercise, all of that can affect our DNA and change things in our DNA, turn it on or turn it off. It's like a light switch, right? And so if you're giving your body is so amazing in the way that it can shift when it has the right tools. So if we know that a specific gene or SNP is not turned on, like you said, then we can give it the tools to turn it on and help the body to be active, to go from A to B, to use that enzyme that it doesn't have. We give it the enzyme and then it's able to work. It's just like a car with a battery.
It's amazing. And you take that information, like, for example, like even your environment, like we live here in Phoenix, and I didn't even know until we ran some talks in the genetic thing that we have a big fat styrofoam facility here in downtown, and everyone in the area has issues with styrene because it's in the air. But if I have a specific gene that is activated by that, I should probably move. Right. So, right, if
Right.
I'm having troubles detoxing, or if I'm having health problems that are, it's activating an autoimmune or a chronic illness or something like that, and you find that out, you're like, oh, okay, if I remove this, right? And this is what the help of like Dr. Lulu and other, naturopathics and other people who are aware of this genetic stuff is, if I remove this, this is probably what's going to happen.
Right.
I'm going to do better in a different situation, right? Maybe your home too is infected with mold. Right. And
Yep.
you don't know, and you may have a gene that is highly sensitive to mold, and you're just sick and you're like, I can't figure out why. I eat right, we'll quote right. I eat right.
Right.
Per the
I eat as
person.
right as I can.
Exactly. I work out, I move my body, I have low stress, but I'm still sick. These type of things show that stuff. And so
Right.
I would challenge you all listening in. If you're like, I don't know if I want to get this type of thing done, I don't want to understand it, blah, blah, blah. You're hurting yourself by not doing it. Because if you're feeling like junk,
Look in the trunk.
you can continue feeling like junk, whatever, that's your choice. But
Right.
if you want to get better,
Mm-hmm.
these type of things are really beneficial, and they're really not that expensive to get done either. Correct me if
Oh,
I'm
no. Yeah. It's not like this massive thing. And another thing I like about genetic work is, let's say, for instance, you have regular blood work done, just, a regular panel with, let's say, cholesterol. So when we have that lipid panel done, say someone is having really large amounts of high cholesterol, we can use the genetics then to go in and see how the body, what's working with the cholesterol levels. Why, some people say, oh, I always have high cholesterol no matter what I do, and then they say, oh, it's in my genetics. And I'm like, well, is it? Let's take a look and see what's happening in there. And a lot of times there'll be specific things that the body is able to do or not do that then can actually make a shift in the, let's say, for instance, cholesterol or blood sugar or cardiovascular health, and so that's what's so empowering. Like you said, it's knowledge is power. It allows us to actually change things that can affect, I would say things that maybe your typical GP is running, right? And they're like, okay, well, I want to put you on a statin because you have high cholesterol. I'm like, wait. Let's not do that. Let's take a step back and let's investigate what's going on here and see if we can make some changes before you bring on a pharmaceutical that could be very upsetting to your system.
Yeah, because it can destroy, I mean, as we know, right?
Mhm.
Your guts, your
Right.
liver, all those things, when all you had to do was just maybe take a deep breath. I always tell this to people, it's like, if you really want to be on the medication, great, that's fine. But you know what? You've dealt with this pain. It didn't just come overnight, right? You've dealt
Right.
with these issues for, X amount of days, weeks, months, years. Why don't you just wait just a little bit longer and start figuring things out a little bit more natural, like we were
Hmm.
designed,
Right.
and go from there. And then if that doesn't work, then yes, there's some of us that still have to be on some medications for survival. But if you can do most of it through food, through your environment, right? The epigenetics, understanding all of that stuff, I think you're so much more, I don't want to say like intelligent, but you're so much more just aware of your
Hmm.
surroundings. And how cool is that? I mean, me being a mom and you as well, it's like you're able to impact your children and then that whole domino effect.
Hmm.
We've lost so much of like being in touch with our bodies and our environments over the years that we've caused more issues
Hmm.
because we're so
Exactly.
busy and quote stressed all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, we have stress, but I also say to patients, don't use the stress as an excuse to not take charge of your health, right? And so there's that fine line. Like stress, you want to have the tools to manage the stress, but are you saying like, I'm so stressed out I can't do anything? Well, that's not really helping you. Are you ready to make the change? Mhm.
So tell us about your book. This book
Yeah,
literally is like just out.
I know. I got to show it to you. I should have grabbed it.
Isn't it great when you get your copies from the publisher and you're like, oh,
I know. Yeah, it's so exciting. So here's the cover.
that
Dee-dee-dee.
is beautiful.
Yeah.
Look at
So
that.
it's detox, nourish, activate, plant and vibrational medicine for energy, mood, and love. And you can see that the first three letters of detox, nourish, and activate are DNA.
Look at how she just weaves that in. Y'all, she is so intelligent. Just
That's right.
go to her. Just go get whatever you need done with her. Like,
Boom. That's right. Yeah. So the book is all about the DNA. And the energy, mood, and love part is so that's the energy is the adrenal glands. The mood is the brain and nervous system, and the heart is love. So it's all about those three systems. And then it's filled with all the plant and vibrational medicine, 11 interventions that help you to shift and change those specific systems. So that can be like whether you're having fatigue, or maybe you're having brain fog or chronic inflammation, or you're having heartache or palpitations. All those things are talked about in the book. And it comes from the place of trauma. That's kind of like the main piece that we wrote it on, myself and my co-author, Adora Winquist. And we decided that we both felt that the true root cause of disease comes from some sort of trauma, whether that's a physical trauma, an emotional trauma, a genetic trauma. So that's kind of the basis of the book. And then from there, we wanted to give people the tools, the actual roadmap to help shift. And so it's all from the cellular perspective, using a specific herb for changing that cellular makeup, whether that's turning on a telomere or whatever that is in the book. So yeah, that's kind of like the basis of the book.
I love that because you're right. And you're right. With most chronic conditions, autoimmune diseases, all those type of things, it's from a trauma, right? I mean, you
Hmm.
think about how many, all of us who've been pregnant over the years, like no one tells us the traumatic experience, although it's good when we produce something beautiful that comes out of it, it wreaks havoc on our body. And we're not taught that that's a trauma and how to recover from that trauma. It's like, oh, okay, if you're crying a lot, you might have some post-traumatic, stress or depression or all that, but that's it, right? No one
Right.
says you should be taking, let's check your thyroid again, let's check your adrenals, let's make sure
Hmm.
everything's functioning appropriately and monitor it. So those type of traumas, and they can stem all the way back from childhood too. You could have been in a stressful school situation or family situation that
Hmm.
really wreaked havoc, and we aren't taught how to recover from those. So I think what you're saying in this book is you're teaching people how to recover from those through the cellular activation and detoxing and basically resetting and starting over.
Exactly. Yeah. And through the book, then you get to work through and pick things that are helpful for you that resonate and learn about different things, And so one of the things I really love about the book is the timing of it, because I have a lot of patients, and I'm sure your listeners too, that have been going through a lot of chronic stress due to our pandemic. Also, that causes a lot of stress. It affects our brain. So we have the adrenals, the brain, and then also people had great loss, family, job, finances. So it's like the book is like perfect timing for all those three things, which I think were the major aspects of what everyone's been dealing with post pandemic.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of us, when we sat at home here, as much as quote healthy as we were eating and whatnot, we ate a lot of different foods that we probably shouldn't have been eating. So it affects your guts, which we know
Mm-hmm.
also affects your brain too. So it's so many different. I'm like excited about the book. Like,
You're like, I
like
can't
I
wait.
want to speak on it for you. Like, but yes,
Right.
I mean, I'll put the links to it in the show notes where you can go, to your different locations and get it, ordered and in your hands as soon as possible. Because like she said, there's a
Right.
roadmap in there to guide you. And I would highly recommend that for a starting point. If you're not like, hey, I don't want to dive into, all the genetic testing and things like that yet. I kind of want to learn on my own because, right, we have half of our listeners who are like, I kind of want to do a lot of the stuff on my own with some
Right.
guidance, like a book. And
Mm-hmm.
then other people are like, I'm ready to dive in now. Like, just give me the name and number and let me talk to the person.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to be able to offer all those different ways to reach out to you and get the assistance that you've helped so many women with over the years too, through
Mm-hmm.
all your different Renaissance women ways.
That's right. Exactly. It all comes together just like the book. This is definitely not my last book. This one is almost 500 pages.
Oh my
So my next one will not be that long. I'm going to have smaller ones. But yeah, this one needed to be bigger because it's setting, like you said, the roadmap, the pieces, the places for people to like undress the trauma, or unveil, I guess is a better word than undress.
Yes,
Unveil I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
that's okay.
Unveil the trauma. It's like trauma can be tricky, right? Because we don't always want to address it. And when until we're ready to address it, and sometimes we don't even know, and we talk about that in the book, we don't always know about the trauma until we start to work on the healing. And then we're like, oh, well, this can come up. A lot of patients of mine will have memories that have they buried that then start to surface as that they didn't even remember, right? Or they thought that they're like, well, this never really even happened because it's been buried so deep, so suppressed. And so, one thing I recommend is if you do have a lot of that deep seated trauma that's surfacing, please seek out help.
Yeah.
The book is a tool, but you want to have some professional help if a lot of stuff is surfacing. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to deal with all this stuff. Whether
Mhm.
it's physical, emotional, maybe need a counselor or a doctor, anything like that.
And it's huge. And I want to state to everyone too that's going to see a professional like a therapist or a counselor and something like that on that mental end, it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. I,
Exactly.
I highly recommend people going multiple times throughout their life as we have these life changes. I know I've done it. We've done it
Hmm.
individually prior to marriage, during like all these different things, because like you said, it helps uncover a lot of trauma, traumatic situations that we may have been suppressing over the years. Like, hey, okay, whatever happened in childhood, yeah, they just said it was okay. Mom and dad said it was fine, or whoever said, and we'll just not a big deal, not a big deal. And then that
Hmm.
rears its ugly head, 20, 30 years later, and you're like, what's happening here? But when you start
Right.
to unpack it, which those therapists and counselors are able to do, and they do an amazing job,
Hmm.
then you're able to start healing And and correct me if I'm wrong too, but when you start to heal the mind, then you can start thinking clearer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know we all talk about brain fog, but I mean, you can
Right.
remove that brain fog and still have a lot of issues going on
Mm,
mentally that are affecting your health.
totally. Yeah,
So
that's 100% true.
that's where
Mm-hmm.
you got to start, up there, because
Yeah.
a lot of those thoughts and, traumas and things like that can be stopping you from eating the way that you're supposed to or exercising the way that you're
hmm
supposed to because of maybe something that did happen years ago.
Right. Yeah. We create loops
Mhm.
and patterns within the system, whether that's a physical loop pattern or like chronic pain is a great one for people to understand. It's like your body gets into this chronic pain loop and we have to break the loop. It's like a distraction technique, right? We have to be like, okay, so let's go in and let's find a way to distract it. You have to break the loop so you can give your mind something else to think about. So it doesn't say like pain, 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 pain. It says, oh, I feel good. Oh, I'm relaxed. I'm calm. I'm healthy. You have to break the pain pattern. And we have a lot of that from, like you said, like growing up through childhood, those particular loop patterns that were generated that we were taught that were good.
But the good
Right?
thing is we can
Yeah,
undo those because the
exactly.
brain is amazing. Like if anyone's ever
Totally.
studied any part of the brain for any period of time, it's amazing and it can basically rewire itself into
hmm
thinking new thoughts and all that stuff, but it takes some work. And like we said, it's go to a licensed therapist if, her book as you're going through it is like, oh my goodness, whoa, what's going on here? Like I know
Right.
500 pages, but I'm stuck on page 5 here and I can't think
Right.
head or whatever page it is. I'm sure you
Yeah.
can further than that, but it's like that's really important to healing.
hmm
And I know Dr. Lulu and other people, they want to make sure that they're healing you as best as they possibly can.
hmm
And if there's some type of blocks, those need to be fixed before they can start diving into some of the other things. So, but I'm sure you have people you recommend as well in that
Oh,
arena.
yeah.
So,
Totally. Yeah. And we have some training in naturopathic medical school a year, but I'm definitely not a licensed therapist and I always refer out because I also have so much to other things to talk about with patients. I can listen, but not like the deep, deep, deep
mhm.
listening that they need to dive into. So yeah, totally recommend that as
Yeah,
part of your healing
absolutely.
toolbox. Hmm
Absolutely. And then, so we can talk so much more. And you guys,
I
she's
know.
amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm telling you, like, first of all, get her book, dive into
Thank
that,
you.
get on her website. I'll put the links to those in the show notes and things like that. But if you could leave our audience with just like one piece of advice, something they can do right now, other than go buy your book, but like go do something right now that can really just kind of jumpstart their journey, their wellness journey, what would that be?
Yeah, I think the mindfulness, that mindset piece is the most important piece that I can recommend for people right now listening. If you are having any type of stress, or even just that you need to have that balance, having some type of mindfulness practice that you're bringing in, whether that's like 5 or 10 minutes of meditation every day, or maybe that's a walking meditation, or maybe you're going out into the woods, something where you're tuning in so you can tune out all the noise around you, because it affects our health every moment. We have to be able to tune in. So I just started a new meditation series and I'm helping my patients, and that's been really helpful. And because you need to have something where you can tune out even when you're meditating, right? So a guided visualization, there's lots of ones on YouTube, including my YouTube station, but you can or channel. But when you have like noise, your mind goes on and on, right? So like, let's say for instance you have anxiety. When you try to meditate, it's like you get almost like more anxious because you're like, I can't,
Mhm, mhm.
you can't think, everything's going through my mind. So the more that you just start simple, like even if just a minute every day, we're just having that calm and peace and to yourself, 100% to you. And I think that's my main tip for today, that self-care has got to come in to your life.
No, I absolutely agree with that. My husband has anxiety and he does meditation every day. And he was like, at first, he's like, how do I ever do this? Blah, 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 like all the things. And when you start small and you just start adding it up, now he's like, I can't go through my day without doing it
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
like you said, it really sets your mind up for success in
hmm
getting things going. And we're so busy with our phones, right? And all the notifications and things like that that distract us. But when we have that focused time, and a lot of times the meditations, they'll say, okay, focus on a specific time or a place or a body part or whatever it is. So it trains your brain. Little do
Mhm.
y'all know, it's really training your brain.
Right. Yes, yes. Training
Thing.
the brain. We're always training the brain for a new thing.
Always,
Yeah.
always. And you could do it at any age. You could do it with any condition that you have.
Mhm.
Like Dr. Lulu said, start with a minute or two. It,
Right.
it is, I'm going to tell you guys, when you do start it for the first time, it is hard because
Right.
you're
It feels odd, right? You're like, what am I
yeah.
doing
Like, what am I
sitting here?
done? What am I doing?
Right.
Oh, the grocery list, all those things, right? Those
Right.
add up. But when you really start to take the time and focus, you will feel such an amazing change in your body. So I love that you gave that tip to our audience. I really appreciate that for
Yeah,
sure.
you're welcome.
And can totally back that up. Makes our household better. My husband meditates now and me.
Right. Yes, it does. It'll make your whole house like 100% better.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we even do it with the kids at night before bed
Mhm.
because they're so crazy. Like
Yeah.
we're like, hey, we're doing Elmo meditation and calm
Right.
bodies and stuff. So it works well for all ages, y'all. And if you say you're too busy, you need to reorganize your priorities.
Exactly.
For sure. For sure. All right. So you can go to your websites, and if you
Mhm.
want, we'll put it in the show notes, but you want to tell people what that is.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. So my website's super easy. It's just doclulu.com. So DOC, like what's up, doc, super easy. So all you have to do that, put that in. And then you can follow me on Instagram as my main place of fun. And so that's just Dr. Lulu Shimmick at Dr. Lulu Shimmick. And from there, that's a really great place to find out about all the stuff I'm sharing with my patients and the world, my books, my fun webinars, tips, all kinds of stuff. I love to share, and my mission is to really help people learn how to take care of themselves in a healthy way.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for
You're
joining us
welcome.
today. This
Thanks for
has
having
been
me.
incredible. And guys, as always, make sure that if this episode just resonated with you, share it, take a screenshot, post it on Instagram, tag both of us on there. Share it with your friends, because this is how the word gets out. And this is not just, for businesses, but just information and education for these different issues, because you never know who you're going to impact by even just doing such a simple share on social media. And all they do is they click on the person's name, they go to their website, they like what they see, they align with them, and they connect, and they start their healing journey with that person. So
Mhm.
don't be afraid to share. If you liked it too, not only share it, but go ahead and leave a review, commenting that you really liked Dr. Lulu's episode here. And again, that's how people start, the whole process. We review everything, and we base
That's
everything
right.
off of reviews.
Totally, we do, don't we?
So true, so true. All right, well, again, guys, go ahead and follow us, get the word out there. And thank you again, Dr. Lulu, for everything that you have provided us with today. And y'all just keep on designing the best you, because the world needs the best you out there.